From the San Francisco Bay Area chapter, Judy Bloom.
Good afternoon. As you just heard, my name is Judy Bloom, but I'm not that famous author. It is a great honor, however, for me to speak to you this afternoon at my very first J Street conference. I am a lifelong political activist and involved Jew, having volunteered and worked as a professional in both the organized Jewish community, where I currently serve on the board of my Reform synagogue and local Jewish Community Relations Council, and in the political arena in my home state of California. Hand in hand with my Jewish practice and my belief system is my love for and dedication to Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. I was first introduced to J Street over 3 years ago when my friend and former boss, Congresswoman Jackie Speier, was asked to co-lead a J Street congressional trip to Israel and the West Bank. She wanted to accept the honor, and she wanted me to go with her. But at the time, I only knew what I had read about J Street, not all that flattering. So I met with Rachel Eisner, a J Street staffer in San Francisco, and grilled her for literally 2.5 hours over coffee. I read everything I could online and in print, and Jeremy Benamy's book. The more I learned, the more I felt at home with the J Street premise that we, as American Jews, have the responsibility, and I say sacred obligation, to let our elected representatives know that the only way to bring peace to the Middle East and to keep Israel both Jewish and democratic is through a negotiated two-state solution. I had been to Israel several times before, but I'll never forget that visit with J Street. Before, I had only heard about the occupation. Now I was seeing it firsthand. I met with Israelis and Palestinians who were working for justice and equality in Israel and in the West Bank. I cried, literally, my way through Hebron when I learned how 18 and 19-year-old Israeli soldiers have to make their presence known by accosting Palestinians on the street, shooting up the baseboards of their houses, and waking them up in the middle of the night. I saw how horrible it was for our Jewish soldiers to be forced to oppress other human beings, and I racked my brain to reconcile how we can be a light unto the nations and model our beliefs in equality and human rights while teaching the next generation to treat Palestinians as less than. I returned home more committed than ever to helping my Congresswoman buck the status quo and to organizing other constituents to let her know that she's not alone in questioning hardline positions or in supporting the Obama administration's efforts to help Israel and the Palestinians make peace. Being pro-Israel doesn't require us to endorse every Israeli government policy. It requires us to help Israel live up to the values upon which we were raised. It is now my honor to serve as a liaison between Congresswoman Speier and J Street, to help others in our region organize constituents and to advocate for what is just and right, for an Israel that reflects our Jewish and democratic values, that lives in peace and security alongside an independent Palestinian state. These principles are the core of the relationship between Israel and the United States. But if Israel continues in its current direction, eroding its support for peace and democracy, our friendship will be at risk. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, J Street's Advocacy Day, we're going to take that message directly to Capitol Hill. By the thousands, we will advocate for a congressional resolution that firmly lays out the essential principles of the U.S.-Israel alliance. A friendship based on democracy, mutual security, active support for two states, partnership against anti-Semitism, racism, and incitement, and of course, mutual respect for our political processes and the inevitable policy differences that are to be expected between allies. By strengthening our relationships with our members of Congress, each of us is strengthening the foundations of the U.S.-Israel alliance. Together, we are taking responsibility for our role in safeguarding Israel's future. I hope that you will all join me in this effort. Thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, a video message from Israel's President, Reuven Rivlin.
Dear fellows, dear friends, the two biggest Jewish communities in the world today, in Israel and in the United States, were always part of the same family, and all members of our family have been and will be accepted no matter what their opinion is. As Shammai and Hillel taught us, the Jewish tradition is based on the democratic principles of dispute and argument. In the Jewish tradition, arguments and disagreements are a sign of strength, not of weaknesses. My friends, it is not a secret that we disagree on the acts we should take in order to secure the future of Israel and as a Jewish and democratic state. But as a Jew and Israeli, I'm not afraid of dispute. As the President of the State of Israel, my door is always open to anyone who is willing to express their opinion in a constructive manner. As members of the same family, we all must call for all true dialogue, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable. I believe that Israel, as a Jewish democracy, must let all voices be heard, from the far right to the far left. In the very same way, the Jewish community in the United States must be open to all voices. Dispute is our nature, and it is our duty to express it and grow stronger from it as a people. Once we know how to listen to the different voices among the Jewish people, Israel, as a Jewish state, will be able to have a true dialogue with its neighbors. I hope for this moment to come and know that it is our shared responsibility to make this wish come true. להתראות, and God bless all of you.
Please welcome Alexandra Stanton, Vice Chair of J Street Board of Directors and Co-Chair of J Street PAC.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, a funny thing happened on the way to the two-state solution last week. It's a pleasure to see you all here. I'm Alexandra Stanton. I'm the Vice Chair of J Street and the Co-Chair of J Street's PAC. When J Street was created 7 years ago in 2008, we racked our brains on how we could identify the thousands of Americans we knew cared about this issue but had no place to come together. Today, I'm delighted to say that there are 3,000 people in this ballroom alone, and there are thousands more around the country that stand with us and work with us on this shared view. We at J Street have been steadfast in our support of a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. We believe that a two-state solution holds the only realistic path to an eternally secure and democratic Israel. That's why we have supported congressional candidates who believe in the two-state solution. That's why we've been working with rabbis across the country that share this view. That's why we've been working on college campuses to amplify the voices of college students who feel the same way. And that is why we are so proud to welcome our guest of honor tonight. White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough is the first aide to see President Obama in the morning and the last to see him at night. He has been by the President's side since the very beginning. Mr. McDonough began his career on Capitol Hill before joining then-Senator Obama in 2007. After serving on his Hill staff, Mr. McDonough joined Obama on the campaign trail in 2008 as Senior Foreign Policy Advisor and was with him on his first foray into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on a visit to Israel and to the West Bank. After the President's inauguration, Mr. McDonough joined the administration in the National Security Council as its head of strategic communication, and later as its chief of staff. Mr. McDonough was named Deputy National Security Advisor in 2010 and White House Chief of Staff in 2013. At the White House, he has overseen a strong U.S.-Israel relationship that has certainly experienced its ups and downs. And recognizing that the status quo between Israelis and Palestinians cannot simply hold, he has worked to keep the two-state solution a cornerstone of U.S. policy in the Middle East and pushed both sides to make tough choices. Finally, as the U.S. and world powers push to reach an agreement in nuclear negotiations on Iran, Mr. McDonough has played a critical role in the Obama administration's efforts to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. I know that I speak for everyone at J Street when I say that we're all rooting for you. Please join me and give a warm J Street welcome in welcoming White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough.
Out here in the fields, I fight for my meals. I get my back into my living.
Thank you so much. I've not heard the Who in a long time, so it's good afternoon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you. Thank you, Alexandra, for the terrific and very warm and overly generous introduction. It's sure great to be here at J Street with so many longtime friends, so many people who are committed to a strong alliance between the United States and Israel, to the security of the State of Israel, and to peace. I want to thank Jeremy Ben-Ami and Mort Halperin and everybody at J Street for the important work you do around the country, including those of my friends here from my home state of Minnesota. So, in fact, the President got a letter the other day, last week, one of the 10 letters he receives and reads from Americans every night, from a couple in Minneapolis. They were just writing to thank the President for standing up for a progressive agenda, and they signed the letter, quote, "Your Minnesota Jewish cheering squad." So that was pretty great, and I think you all know who that was. President Obama asked me to convey to you his deep appreciation to all of you for your partnership and your work on behalf of the U.S.-Israel relationship, especially building support for our efforts to advance a two-state solution. I want to, in particular, acknowledge all the young people in the audience, more than 1,100 college students, I gather. I know sitting in a dark conference hall listening to some guy in a suit give a speech probably isn't everybody's ideal spring break. But that you are here continues a tradition of young Jewish American leaders working to make our union more perfect, even if, as with the bravery of Rachel Beda at UCLA, doing so opens you to criticism. You make all of us stronger and you make America even better. So I thank you very much for that. Now, I started, as Alexandra said, as a member of the President's National Security Team, but as his Chief of Staff and with appreciation for all the work that J Street has done as our partner. I want to focus on the whole picture for a minute, how far our country has come these past 6 years. because J Street is an organization that, in the best tradition of the American Jewish community, shares a set of values about the type of country that we are, a democracy where all our people can access opportunity. So with typical American determination, we turned around the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We're at 60 months straight of private sector job growth, the longest streak on record. America's businesses have created 12 million new jobs, and unemployment is down from 10% in 2009 to 5.5% today. We've cut our deficits by nearly 2/3. Middle-class wages are finally growing again, and as the President reminded us last week, none of this happened by accident. It's in part a result of, in his words, decisions made by this administration to prevent a second depression and to lay a new foundation for growth and prosperity. Because of those decisions, an auto industry that was flatlining is once again churning out great American cars, and we're negotiating new high-standard trade agreements so that it will make it easier to sell these cars and other goods made in America all over the world. Factories are now opening their doors here at home at the fastest pace in decades. And as Interior Secretary Jewell reported last week, we've helped boost oil production from 5 million to 9 million barrels a day, increased solar energy production tenfold, tripled wind energy generation. In so doing, we're protecting the planet and creating jobs for future generations, and the United States is leading the global fight against climate change. We're making sure that our people have the tools to access the dreams and opportunity of the 21st century. More of our kids are graduating from high school than ever before. More Americans are earning their degrees than ever before. Today is also the 5th anniversary of the President signing into law the Affordable Care Act. $16 million Americans now have the security of health insurance, cutting the ranks of the uninsured in the United States by about 1/3, and health care prices have risen at their slowest rate in 50 years. Young entrepreneurs can now compare and buy affordable plans, which frees them to strike out on their own, making it easier for them to follow their dreams, start new businesses, and create even more new jobs. We fought for policies that make it easier for women to participate in the workforce, equal pay, better maternity leave, and flexible work schedules. We've advanced historic protections for LGBT Americans. And as President Obama has appointed more women, minority, and openly gay judges, all exceptionally talented jurists, to the federal bench than any president in history. Including, by the way, 2 extraordinary women on the Supreme Court, Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan. Last month, the President put forth a budget that will build on this progress and keep us moving forward. It's a strategy for middle-class economics. That's growth that benefits everybody. Unfortunately, last week, Republicans in Congress unveiled a budget that will do the opposite, undermining our progress with top-down economics that have failed the country before. The Republican budget prioritizes tax cuts for those at the very top while cutting investments in education and job training that benefit middle-class families. It would end initiatives that help small manufacturers grow their businesses and create jobs. It would strip health insurance from millions and gut Medicaid, doubling the ranks of the uninsured. The House even proposes to end Medicare as we know it. They call it a path to prosperity, but as the President said, it's only a path to prosperity for people who have already prospered. Nor is it a path to security. At a time when we're facing global challenges that require American leadership, the Republican budget would cut our core national security funding. That's right. I got to say this again. The Republican budget would cut our core national security funding. Now, since we go through this budget process once a year, sometimes it feels like theater without particular consequence. The consequences, however, are quite real. The consequences of that budget are a smaller military force and less funding for training and equipment, leaving our troops exposed to greater risk. Or take another issue we all feel so deeply and so strongly about: assistance to Israel and funding to promote peace. Our military assistance to Israel, which among other things includes Iron Dome, comes from the defense side of the national security budget. On the other side is our non-defense funding for the entire world, including for Israel and other areas of the Middle East. The problem is that adjusting for inflation, the Republican budget holds both sides of that core budget, defense and non-defense, at the lowest point in a decade. That means we'd be investing in our national security at 2006 levels in 2016. That's a decade ago. Well, the threats we face in 2016 won't be 2006 threats. And the threats Israel faces won't be those either. We have to do better. So as they debate their budget this week, Republicans need to answer a simple question. Why does a budget at 2006 levels not put at risk the critical investments we need to make, including in Israel's defense? Now, the President's budget, on the other hand, provides the resources necessary to sustain our national security and protect America's vital interests. President Obama has proposed an increase in defense spending and in non-defense spending, and laid out ways to pay for it. For Israel alone, we've requested more than $3 billion in foreign military financing and more than $100 million to improve Israel's capability to defend against ballistic and cruise missile threats. And we've asked for an additional $55 million for Iron Dome. Of course, our relationship with Israel isn't defined by numbers in a budget. Ours is deep and abiding partnership between two vibrant democracies. We saw that democracy in action last week as Israelis of all backgrounds, Jewish and Arab, religious and secular, cast their ballots. At the heart of any democracy is the right for all citizens to participate equally. In his call to congratulate Prime Minister Netanyahu last Thursday, President Obama committed to continuing consultation on a range of regional issues, including the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The process of forming a new Israeli government is now underway, and in the coming days and weeks, we'll see what it looks like. So with the remainder of my time with you today, I'd like to share with you how President Obama sees the road ahead. First, no matter who leads Israel, America's commitment to Israel's security will never waver. As we all know, Israel faces real dangers in a tough neighborhood. I traveled with then Senator Obama to Israel in 2008. I will never forget our time in the holy city of Jerusalem and following behind him as he approached the Western Wall. And even in the dark hours of that very early morning, it was a place bustling with energy afforded by one's faith. On that trip, the president toured Sderot, and he saw the devastation wrought by Hamas-launched rockets. He met with Israelis living under the constant threat of attack. Since then, I've also watched President Obama's personal commitment to increasing our security cooperation with Israel to unprecedented levels. Today, our security and military and intelligence cooperation is stronger than it's ever been, and that's not going to change. The U.S.-Israel Consultative Group will continue to ensure cooperation at the highest levels of our governments. Under President Obama, we've spent hundreds of millions helping to develop David's Sling and the Arrow missile defense systems. I recall very clearly a call with the Israeli ambassador at 5 p.m. on a Friday evening last July, when he requested, and shortly thereafter the President and Congress delivered, an additional $225 million for Iron Dome missiles and batteries. That, on top of the nearly $1 billion we had invested in Iron Dome already, which saved so many Israeli lives during the conflict with Hamas last summer. And next year, when we deliver the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, Israel will be the only country in the Middle East with a fifth-generation aircraft. In other words, we will continue to ensure Israel's qualitative military edge. As the President has said so many times, we have Israel's back. Second, we continue to believe that the best way to safeguard Israel's long-term security is to bring about a comprehensive peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Two states for two peoples living side by side in security and in peace. To achieve this, the United States has long advocated direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. In 2009, Prime Minister Netanyahu publicly endorsed a two-state solution. Over the course of President Obama's administration, most recently with the tireless efforts of Secretary John Kerry, the United States has expended tremendous energy in pursuit of this goal. That's why the Prime Minister's comments on the eve of the election, in which he first intimated and then made very clear in response to a follow-up question that a Palestinian state will not be established while he is Prime Minister, were so very troubling. After the election, the Prime Minister said that he had not changed his position, but for many in Israel and in the international community, such contradictory comments call into question his commitment to a two-state solution, as did his suggestion that the construction of settlements has a strategic purpose of dividing Palestinian communities, and his claim that conditions in the larger Middle East must be more stable before a Palestinian state can be established. We cannot simply pretend that these comments were never made. In recent days, some have suggested our reaction to this issue is a matter of personal pique. Nothing could be further from the truth. America's commitment to a two-state solution is fundamental to U.S. foreign policy. It's been the goal of Republican and Democratic presidents, and it remains our goal today, because it is the only way to secure Israel's future as a Jewish and democratic state. That's why the President has said that we need to reevaluate our approach to the peace process and how we pursue the cause of peace, because, like each and every one of you, we care deeply, deeply about Israel and its future. We will look to the next Israeli government to match words with action and policies that demonstrate a genuine commitment to a two-state solution. And like every administration since President Johnson, we will continue to oppose settlement activity since it undermines the prospects of that peace. I want to be very clear that we share Israel's concern about the security environment in the region, which is why, as part of the last round of talks, the President and Secretary Kerry directed General John Allen to prepare a detailed plan to provide for security in the West Bank over the long term. In the end, we know what a peace agreement should look like. The borders of Israel and an independent Palestine should be based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps. Each state needs secure and recognized borders, and there must be robust provisions that safeguard Israel's security. An occupation that has lasted for almost 50 years must end, and the Palestinian people Palestinian people must have the right to live in and govern themselves in their own sovereign state. President Obama still firmly believes what he said in Jerusalem 2 years ago, that peace is necessary, just, and possible. Peace is necessary because it's the only way to ensure that a secure state of Israel is both Jewish and democratic. Israel cannot maintain military control of another people indefinitely. That's the truth. And as the president has said, neither occupation nor expulsion of Palestinians is the answer. Anything less than true peace will only worsen the situation. A one-state solution would effectively end Israel's nature as a Jewish and democratic state. Unilateral annexation of the West Bank territories would be both wrong and illegal. The United States would never support it, and it's unlikely that Israel's other friends would either. It would only contribute to Israel's further isolation. Peace is also undeniably just. Palestinian children deserve the same right to be free in their own land as Israeli children in theirs. A two-state solution will finally bring Israelis the security and normalcy to which they are entitled, and Palestinians the sovereignty and dignity they deserve. And we cannot give up on the idea that peace is possible, because peace will make Israel stronger. It will provide clear, secure borders that will increase Israel's security. It would deal a knockout blow to calls for boycotts, divestment, and sanctions, which many of you have fought so hard and so courageously to oppose. It would undercut efforts to isolate Israel in the international community and roll back delegitimization efforts. But achieving peace will not be easy. It will require political courage, but nothing would do more to improve Israel's security or its relations with its neighbors than to bring about a sovereign and contiguous Palestinian state alongside a secure, democratic, Jewish Israel. No nation has done more to stand with Israel in the world, including at the United Nations, than the United States. And so, as difficult as it is, the United States will never stop working for a two-state solution and a lasting peace that Israelis and Palestinians so richly deserve. I know that you're here because you care deeply about the cause of peace, and your voices are important too. You can help remind people that there is a great constituency for peace, that there are people who believe, as the President does, that peace is necessary, peace is just, and yes, peace is possible. Third and finally, the United States will continue to do everything in our power to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. In the coming days, our P5+1 negotiators will continue to meet with Iran's representatives to see if we can bridge the remaining gaps and come to an understanding that will peacefully and verifiably resolve the international community's deep concerns with Iran's nuclear program. And as we've said all along, we will not accept a bad deal. Our diplomatic engagement with Iran has already delivered concrete results. Through the Joint Plan of Action, we've succeeded in stopping the advance of Iran's nuclear program and even rolling it back in key areas. Iran is getting rid of its existing stockpile of its most highly enriched uranium. It has capped its stockpiles of low-enriched uranium and frozen its enrichment activities. That means no new enrichment facilities and no new centrifuges, including its next-generation models. Iran has also ceased construction on its plutonium reactor at the Iraq facility. We know Iran is living up to its commitments so far because, under the joint plan, we have gained unprecedented access to Iran's nuclear program. For the first time, inspectors with the International Atomic Energy Agency are allowed daily access to Iran's key nuclear sites at Natanz and Fordow. Along with our international partners, we've provided Iran with extremely limited sanctions relief, But make no mistake, Iran's economy is still under enormous pressure, and Iran remains cut off from the vast majority of its foreign currency reserves. The question now is whether we can reach a long-term deal, one that provides verifiable assurances that Iran cannot pursue a nuclear weapon. 2 weeks ago, my friend and colleague, Susan Rice, the President's National Security Advisor, laid out exactly what we are trying to accomplish with these negotiations. As she said, a good deal is one that would cut off every pathway for Iran to produce enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon. Every single one. That means Iran would not be able to produce, to develop weapons-grade plutonium at Iraq or anywhere else, nor would it be allowed to use its underground site at Fordow to enrich uranium. A deal would also extend the amount of time it would take Iran to produce a single bomb's worth of weapons-grade uranium to reach breakout capacity. According to experts, Iran is only 2 to 3 months away from that breakout, but under a deal, that window would have to be at least 1 year. To prevent Iran from pursuing a nuclear weapon through covert channels, any deal would include frequent and intrusive inspections at all of Iran's nuclear sites. The only deal we'll accept is one that ensures us that Iran's nuclear program is entirely peaceful. And if we detect any failure to comply on Iran's part, the extended breakout window would give us plenty of time to respond. In other words, we'd make it harder for Iran to reach breakout and rush for a nuclear bomb. Any deal would last for more than a decade, setting back Iran's program for far longer than would military strikes. And at the expiration of any deal, Iran would still be obliged under international agreements to provide comprehensive access to its nuclear facilities and to continue providing assurances that it's not pursuing nuclear weapons. Let me make one final and very critical point about these negotiations. The deal we are pursuing is both realistic and achievable. A scenario where Iran forgoes domestic enrichment capacity for all time would surely be ideal, but it's not grounded in reality. Not even our closest partners support denying Iran the ability to pursue peaceful nuclear energy forever, and Iran already knows how to enrich uranium. We can't turn back the clock on that. An absolutist position makes for good rhetoric, but as Ambassador Rice said last week, sound bites won't stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. The bottom line is this. Compared to the alternatives, diplomacy offers the best and most effective way to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And this is our best shot at diplomacy. We have to give diplomacy a chance to succeed. Let me also say that the Obama administration welcomes and appreciates the important role Congress plays in U.S. policy towards Iran. Congress helped put in place the strongest sanctions regime ever, and it's helped us bring Iran to the negotiating table. Now that we're at the table, Congress should not seek to undermine the negotiations before a deal is reached. Now, I'm sure you've heard about the letter some Republican senators addressed directly to Iran's leaders. It was a blatant political move, and as the President said, that's not how America does its business. Moreover, some of the same senators who signed that letter criticized the President's proposed authorization for the use of military force against ISIL because it imposes limits on the Commander-in-Chief. So they want to give the President open-ended authorities to conduct war in the Middle East while imposing strict limits on his ability to reach an agreement that could help prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon without waging another war in the Middle East. That just doesn't make any sense. We can't remove diplomacy from America's toolbox. That's not how we've come to lead the world. The letter was also critically flawed in its legal reasoning. We're pursuing a political arrangement with Iran that does not require congressional approval. Such deals are an essential, long-standing element of international diplomacy. Republican and Democratic presidents alike have relied on them. It's how President Roosevelt negotiated the Atlantic Charter. It's how President Nixon, with the Shanghai Communique, helped open our relationship with China. It's how we peacefully removed Syria's entire declared stockpile of chemical weapons. And those are just a couple of examples among the many. Some senators have also proposed legislation that would torpedo diplomacy by suggesting Congress must veto any deal and by stripping the president of his existing authorities to waive sanctions. Let's be very clear about what this would do. It would embolden hardliners in Iran. It would separate the United States from our allies, and it would potentially fracture the international unity that has been essential to keeping this pressure on Iran. In other words, this legislation could cause the United States to be blamed if diplomacy fails. Additionally, it would set a very damaging precedent by limiting the ability of future presidents, Republican or Democratic, to conduct essential diplomatic negotiations. That's why President Obama has said, should this legislation pass, he'll veto it. If a deal is reached, we will share the details and technical documents with Congress, at which point we welcome a full debate. After all, only Congress can terminate U.S. statutory sanctions on Iran during the duration of this agreement. And everyone from the president on down will aggressively seek congressional and public support for any deal. There will surely be voices on all sides. I hope that yours will be among them. But a good deal is the best way to reach our shared goal. That goal, a solemn commitment from the president, is preventing Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. Even if a nuclear deal is reached, our concerns about Iran's behavior in the region and around the world will endure. Iran remains a state sponsor of terrorism, a proliferator, a gross violator of human rights. It actively seeks to destabilize its neighbors, props up the Assad regime in Syria, and supports groups devoted to violence such as Hezbollah and Hamas. Iranian leaders have threatened Israel's very existence, behavior and rhetoric that has no place in the 21st century. Yet to walk away from the opportunity to diplomatically and peacefully resolve one of the greatest threats to international security would not strengthen our hand to stop Iran's destabilizing activity. Imagine for a moment how an Iran armed with a nuclear weapon, secure in its ability to deter its neighbors, would use that nuclear overhang to even more aggressively destabilize the region and transfer nefarious technology. It will therefore be far better for everyone, including for Israel, to counter other challenges from Tehran while having verifiably addressed the international community's concerns over its nuclear program. And that's what the president intends to do. Last week, President Obama released his annual message for Nowruz, the Persian New Year. As he has every year, he spoke directly to the people and the leaders of Iran. He made clear that Iran's leaders face a choice between two paths. The first is the path Iran is on today, one that has cut off Iran from the world and caused needless hardship for the Iranian people. If Iran's leaders cannot accept a reasonable deal, that is the path that Iran will remain on. But if Iran's leaders agree to a deal, there can be a better path, one that opens up opportunities for the Iranian people to participate in the global economy, creates jobs, and builds a brighter future. The challenges I've described today are not easy, but they're not impossible either. As Jewish congregations across the country prayed on Saturday, and I'm not going to attempt my Hebrew here, he who makes peace in his high places, he shall make peace upon us and upon all of Israel. But it's not enough for us just to hope for a peace in our world. It's up to us to make that happen. In my Catholic tradition, When I think about the work ahead of us, I remember the words of St. Augustine. Pray as though everything depended on God, he said. Work as though everything depends on you. St. Augustine was speaking about the same responsibility that Jewish people know as tikkun olam, our shared duty to heal the world. The problems we face may seem overwhelming, but we push forward. Smart choices, relentless determination, they can add up to progress. They add up to a world that's more peaceful and more secure than it was before. That's why we're never going to give up on peace between Israelis and Palestinians. That's why we're going to give everything we've got to see if we can get a good deal with the Iranians. And that's why our commitment to the security of the people of Israel will never, ever waver. Like so many of you, I'm a parent. My wife, Kari, and I have 3 incredible, beautiful kids. And like parents everywhere, we want our children to grow up in a country, in a world that is peaceful and where, if they work hard, they can reach their God-given potential. I want you to know that President Obama is working every day to make that future possible. And he firmly believes that if we work together, if we work, as St. Augustine said, as though everything depends on us, we will succeed in leaving our children a better world. Thank you so much, and thank you for being our partners in this very important work.
Out here in the fields, I found my meals.
Please welcome member of the J Street Board of Directors, Molly Freeman.
Hello. Israel's youngest lawmaker, member of Knesset Stav Shaffir, has already accomplished more before age 30 than most of us in a lifetime. In January, Shaffir became a YouTube sensation and catapulted to the 2nd spot in the Labor Party primaries after delivering an impassioned speech on the floor of the Knesset about Hatikva, hope. Real Zionism is to be concerned with the weakest members of society, she cried, challenging her right-wing colleagues. Real Zionism is solidarity, not only in war, but in the day-to-day, to keep each other safe. Her words have awakened a new generation of Israelis eager to reject the politics of fear, root out corruption, and fight for the future of Israel as a democracy and Jewish homeland. Before her military service, Shaffir established an organization of pre-army volunteers who moved to Tiberias to work in informal education with underprivileged children. After joining the Army, she volunteered to serve in the pilot course, and 6 months later was moved to the Army magazine, where she became a journalist and covered the disengagement from Gaza and the Second Lebanon War. After her service, she attended the Olive Tree Scholarship Program for future Israeli and Palestinian leaders at City University, London, and later worked as a freelance journalist while pursuing her master's degree at Tel Aviv University. But Shaffir's calling came in 2011, when, struggling to make ends meet in a windowless, crumbling Tel Aviv apartment, she and her roommate decided to organize a tent protest for affordable housing. Within 2 weeks, thousands of tents started springing up across the country, and Shaffir had become one of the leaders of a nationwide movement. In many ways, it was a protest about the Israeli story, she said. we were told a story about a country where people are responsible for each other. She came to the realization that young people really did have the power to change the world and ran for Knesset in 2013 on the Labor ticket. In only 2 years, she has become one of Israel's most inspiring lawmakers, unafraid to shake up the status quo. On the powerful Finance Committee, she discovered that without transparency or accountability, right-wing Knesset members were transferring millions of dollars in taxpayer funds to the settlements in the West Bank. She has led a crusade against the secret budget, demanding the Israeli government to use the budget to take care of the Israeli periphery in the Negev and the Galilee, connecting Israel's economic challenges with the need to end the conflict. Her push for a resolution of the Israeli-Palestine conflict comes from her profound faith in the Zionist dream of an Israel where everyone takes responsibility for each other, where nothing is impossible. Please join me in welcoming one of Israel's most promising young leaders, member of Knesset, Stav Shaffir.
Hello. Hello, friends. Shalom. Thank you so much for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure to speak here at J Street. Knowing that Israel has friends abroad supporting us is heartwarming. And I'm even more encouraged to see so many young people in the audience. That's for you. There is always a sense of optimism here at J Street, an atmosphere of shared purpose, committed to a stronger Israel based on values of peace, social justice, and fairness. I've been here twice before, and every time I've drawn hope and encouragement. This time, it seems, I will have to do some encouraging. Because since I arrived in the United States, I've heard a frustration that I haven't heard in the past. Beyond frustration, almost despair. The frustration, my friends, is natural. This is not the result that we hoped for. But despair, this we cannot afford. Last time I spoke at this conference, I had just taken part in the largest social justice protest movement in Israel. As one of the leaders of the movement, I came here to tell you that people had protested on the streets, had put their inner conflict aside, and stood united as an equal society. We knew no fear. We knew history was being made. We stood in solidarity with each other. At the time, like many other young Israelis, I didn't see the political establishment as a place for us. Young Israelis, idealists, activists, dreamers. I thought it was too corrupt, too disconnected. This feeling shared by so many in Israel is a direct result of the past 20 years of right-wing governments. Governments that, in order to maintain the status quo, both politically and economically, did everything they could in order to frighten us of change. A few weeks ago, during the election campaign, I sat on a panel discussion with the head of the coalition, Likud member Saeb Erekat. The panel was discussing why Prime Minister Netanyahu's government hadn't solved the housing problem and what their solution was to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Erekat retorted that it's about time Israelis stop believing in rosy dreams. Stop believing in dreams. This is, in one sentence, what Netanyahu has been telling us for years. This is the reason, my friends, why he got that amount of support. His aim is to maintain the status quo. It's his political strategy. His means make Israelis believe that this is security, that managing the conflict, including repeated cycles of terrors and wars, is the best security that we can have, that every other plan is dreamy or impossible. This is also the reason why the camp that I'm part of was not able to get enough votes. We simply didn't give Israelis a clear enough picture of what dream we have for a better future. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about time we do. This is our mission, to get our people, after so many years of fear and stagnation, to be courageous enough to dream of a better Israel. Today, I come here as the youngest member of Knesset. And look, in Israel's strange political reality, at 29, I'm already embarking on my second term. 2 years ago, soon after I entered the Knesset Finance Committee as an opposition member, I discovered, and what I'm about to say is really important, that Israel actually has two budgets. One that is legal, and another that is secret, that politicians have been playing with, passing over billions of shekels to political projects which distort our reality and tear at the very fabric of our society. Using this corrupt system, the government could make cuts in social services and break the social security net that every Israeli deserves and hide the information from public scrutiny. Using this corrupt system, the Israeli government could hold negotiations with the Palestinians while secretly transferring billions of shekels to the settlements. At the same time, you wouldn't believe how much money went to hilltop settlements at the expense of the poor of Israel's periphery and the many cities and communities in the Negev, in the Galil, inside the Green Line. This secret system allowed right-wing politicians to make our tax money their own, using our money to penetrate our children's schools, neighborhoods, and synagogues to build up their political power. When I started to fight this corruption, I was advised by more experienced politicians to stop. We have been doing this for decades, they told me. Don't touch it. Your political career will end. I was only an opposition member with not much hands-on experience, but what I discovered was just too disturbing to give up. Within weeks, I recruited dozens of volunteers using social networks, and together, we built an army of transparency, investigating every number in the budget, forcing the finance ministry to provide answers on missing money transfers, creating the technologies that enable the public to see the real actions of our government. After a year-long fight, we managed to make Israeli budget transparent for the first time in history. We blocked the right from transferring funds illegally to their political allies. We started to control where our money was going. We made crucial steps that will ensure that in the future, our money will be invested in schools, in hospitals, in public transportation, in our welfare system. And you know what this fight showed me? It showed me that when we come together, we are able to make a change. Dreaming about a better Israel, about an Israel of equality, of peace and security, of true freedom, are not just rosy dreams. These are dreams that serious politicians must make a reality. This is the role of politics, to make every effort to find the pragmatic ways of making dreams come true. That's what the founders of Zionism did when they dreamed of our country. They dared to believe in the right of the Jewish people to a place of their own, in independence. Zionism allowed us to build a state, a right given to a very few in history. The very essence of the movement was based on the idea that change was not impossible. The mission of my generation, of our generation, is to make this dream complete. Our mission is to decide what Israel is. Friends, we have to make a choice. The choice between two distinct visions, two distinct alternatives. The vision from the right is one in which the enemy is always at the gate and the fifth column is always inside. It is a vision of a constant battle against demons, real or imagined. The far-right Israel is one in which settlers and other special interest groups are bestowed to the public without transparency and without the public's consent. It is a land of corruption, despair, and fear. The far-right Israel is an increasingly intolerant state where LGBT couples are not treated as equals and where religious extremists indoctrinate children in our schools. It is a society where minorities are considered a threat, even when they want to exercise their right as citizens and vote. This abandons every ideal that Zionism has fought for, and it doesn't end there. The right is prepared to relinquish the very Zionist idea of solidarity, of looking after one another, of taking care of the weakest members of our society for their own political victory. This is not the Israel desired by the great majority of its citizens. This is not the future that we want. Our vision is the polar opposite of Netanyahu's, but it must be just as articulate and just as vocal. We want an Israel that celebrates diversity, where tolerance is not a weakness, it's a strength. We want an Israel that treats its poor with compassion. We want an Israel that treats its minorities with respect. We will not stay silent to racist trends. We want an Israel that treats every citizen as equal, regardless of their origin, religion, or financial status. We want an Israel where public officials are held accountable and where public money is distributed with transparency. And above all, we want an Israel that does not control millions of Palestinians. We want an Israel that is constantly working for peace. We want it because it's right, and we want it because it's necessary for the security and the sustainability of our beloved country. The people of Israel deserve it. This is what the Zionist dream is all about. Friends, this mission is important. Therefore, we don't have the privilege to despair. My friends, Israel faces great challenges and very real threats. We need to say clearly, Iran is a problem, Hezbollah is a problem, Hamas is a problem, ISIS is an hour's drive away. But we should not forget, we are no longer wanderers. We are a strong country with a strong army. We have the power to create a better reality. We believe in diplomacy and peace, not because we are oblivious to these threats, but because we take them seriously. Because we know that diplomacy is part of what is required in order to face them successfully. Take the threat of a nuclear Iran. It's a clear threat to Israel, and it's a clear threat to the entire world. Yet, by turning our back on our friends, by interfering with our closest allies, we're playing into the hands of the Iranian leadership. This is where we need to work closely with our friends to ensure our security and that of the entire region. We don't have time to waste. It is time for political courage, time to enter talks with the Palestinian leaderships from today's position of strength and reach an agreement for 2 states for 2 people. Yes, my friends, we have serious choices to make. Therefore, we must fight not only against the right, but against the opinion that suggests that we can blur the distinctions between these 2 different visions for Israel's future. There is no real center party. There is no luxury of not choosing sides. Great choices need to be made in Israel. We cannot shy away from these choices. A lot is on our shoulders of us lawmakers. It's up to us to put policy back on the table and shelve the far-right's desperate political schemes. Policy which could lead to security, to prosperity, politics of happiness. My friends, make no mistake. Today I speak with you hopeful as ever. I'm hopeful because I know my vision for Israel is better for all of its citizens. The strategic alliances with our friends and allies, the valuable and important support that we get from you, the American jury, is crucial in building this alternative. It is unacceptable to put you, our brothers and sisters, in an impassable position in which you're asked to choose between your love for Israel and your loyalty to the United States. Support for Israel has long been bipartisan, and that cannot and should not change now. It is with your unwavering support, your commitment for a better Israel, one that is dedicated to social justice, to tikkun olam, both within its borders and outside of them, that we can make the change. My friends, when we sing the national anthem, Hatikva, the hope, we sing it with the full meaning of this word, hope. Hope for politics of peace, for a political system that will fix the relationships among the various parts of our society. That's the real Zionism. That's the real hope. And I'm hopeful than ever, because I know that we have great work ahead of us. My friends, now is the time to be more hopeful than ever. Now is the time to work harder than ever. Now is the time for bold choices. Now is the time to be united, stronger, together. My friends, have no fear. More than ever, now is the time for courage. Thank you very much.
Strange world, hoping I could learn a bit about what
Please welcome J Street Board member Dan Cole.
Thank you. Well, keeping things rolling, my name is Dan Cole. I serve on the J Street PAC board, and today I really have the wonderful pleasure of introducing one of our movement's biggest and strongest friends in Washington, D.C., Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. Now in her 8th term representing Evanston and North Suburban Chicago in Congress, give it up. Jan Schakowsky is a leading champion of pro-Israel, pro-peace policies. Let me also acknowledge Jan Schakowsky's steadfast work fighting on behalf of social justice and defending the pluralistic values which so many of us hold dear. She is also a dyed-in-the-wool liberal Zionist who doesn't have the luxury of throwing her hands up or of walking away. As a Jew, support for Israel is in my DNA, Representative Schakowsky recently wrote in the Chicago Sun-Times. Fiercely committed to the survival of the State of Israel, both as a Jewish homeland and a democracy, few lawmakers have spoken out as consistently or as boldly for a two-state resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as Jan Schakowsky. Jan has also taken the lead on countless legislative initiatives, including co-sponsoring a resolution backing the Obama administration's efforts to achieve a peace deal and introducing legislation supporting critical aid both for Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Representative Schakowsky was one of the original endorsees of J Street PAC and has played such an important role in changing the political calculus on Israel in the United States Congress so that conviction and good sense can prevail. Jan Schakowsky is someone her House colleagues look to for guidance on Middle East peace and security matters, and J Street was proud to travel with Jan to Israel and the Palestinian territory as part of a congressional delegation which she co-led in 2013. And we are sincerely grateful for all of the Congresswoman's work supporting the current international negotiations to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. We are truly fortunate to have a public servant and a friend like Jan Schakowsky in the U.S. Congress. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky.
Get in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world, Been waiting on this for a while now. Paying my dues to the dirt. I've been waiting to smile, to hold it in for a while, Take you with me if I can.
Thank you so much. Well, I was able to greet Stav as she left the platform here and thanked her for saying that we don't have the privilege of despair. But listening to this crowd, I don't think I hear any despair in this room, right? That's strong. She said, despair is not a political strategy. I want to begin with just a great thank you for J Street. I have to tell you that some of the courage to take positions that I've been able to take are really because of the space that in a very short time, J Street has opened for members of Congress to expand the political discussion about the State of Israel and our relationship to it. Thank you for that. And after all, this is a pretty young organization. From 2008 till today, it's been quite an achievement. I want to thank you too. In 2010, I had an election, an election within our community. That is, I ran against a Jewish Orthodox Tea Party Republican who made it very clear that actually Jan Schakowsky was anti-Israel because of the positions that she took. And J Street really came to my rescue, not just with money, but with the kind of moral support that was able to assure a substantial victory in that election. So I thank you for that. And in the last few weeks, I want to tell you, J Street has been incredibly important. This has been a really rather ugly time. When I came out very clearly in support of the president, of the agreement with Iran, when I did not attend the speech of Prime Minister Netanyahu, you better believe that the phone started ringing. Oh yes, I'm a self-hating Jew, and I'm even anti-Semitic, and very ugly things about the President of the United States. But here's the important thing. I just got the tally this morning from my staff. 55% of all of the communications to my office were positive. 55 to 45%. Now, in part, that's because J Street and some of my friends that I see in the audience, the Zivins in Chicago, were able to get the word out to contact the office. I think my staff was actually surprised to hear these numbers because the phones were ringing so constantly and some of those messages were so terrible. But I think the 55-45 is not only reflective of the work that J Street did to mobilize people and to mobilize support for those of us who took that position, but I think it is also really reflective of our country, and in fact, even more than 55%, because people generally tend to call the office of members of Congress when they're angry with their position. And so I think we all ought to be comforted with that. But I have to tell you that the day after the election, and in fact, the days leading up to the election and the day of election, my overwhelming feeling was, to put it succinctly, oy vey. But it was articulated, actually, the dilemma that we were facing more eloquently, I thought, in the editorial that I read in the foreword. He said that Benjamin Netanyahu's surprising and decisive victory in the Israeli elections has created a wrenching dilemma for many American Jews: how to continue to love Israel while a government that violates many of our community's values is in place. The question now for us is how to maintain a genuine connection to Israel and what we believe are its deeply grand and humanistic values, while distancing ourselves from a leader who stands for the opposite. Well, we certainly heard an amazing statement of a difference of opinion in Israel from the youngest minister in the Knesset. Stav Shaffir is 29 years old and in her second term, and I firmly believe represents not only the future of Israel, but much of the current present of Israel as well. So what I want to say to you today is that we do need courage. That was her final word. In feeling in our hearts that when we stand for a two-state solution, we do stand for Israel. When we stand against racism, we stand for Israel. When we stand for a negotiated settlement agreement that will prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, we stand with Israel. When we stand with the President's efforts to achieve that, we stand for Israel. And I have to tell you, I've seen Dennis McDonough a fair amount over the last 2 weeks. I never saw him smiling as broadly as I did when I saw him leave this stage. That felt good. And I want to tell you something else. This is a J Street moment. This is an opportunity for this organization to now take leadership, to be bold, and to clearly state our positions. You have in your packet a letter to the President of the United States that I have signed and others have signed, and we want you to get members of Congress to sign. Let me just read a couple words of it, but you'll read it carefully, I know. Dear Mr. President, we wish to express our strong support for U.S. negotiators' efforts to reach an agreement that prevents Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. We encourage you to stay on course during this critical stage, not listening to those prejudging an agreement that does not yet exist, and instead continuing to work toward an enforceable agreement. I want to tell you that lots of people who call my office, I think they're nuclear scientists, I guess, and they also are able to see into a crystal ball and know exactly what's in an agreement. But you heard from Dennis McDonough that we, the United States of America, along with our allies, will not agree to as Prime Minister Netanyahu, a bad deal. It will not happen. So this is a moment for our organization now to stand up, to go proudly and boldly, and not defensively, into congressional office and declare our stance for peace. You know, I went on Meet the Press up against Joe Lieberman, who was arguing for legislation like increased sanctions, like the Corker bill that he has, that would allow the members of Congress to actually vote before a resolution could go into effect. Now, does anybody really think that with Republican domination of both houses of Congress, with a Speaker of the House who quite deliberately invited the Prime Minister to stand at the most prestigious venue in the world and speak against the policy of the United States, do you think that we would be able to defeat those kinds of bills? The likely answer is no. And the dangerous answer is that these bills would pass. Congress definitely has a role. We will have to vote at some point to alleviate some of the sanctions regulations for Iran. We will have an opportunity to debate and discuss. But the idea of actually having the Congress vote before those deals are actually made, before we know exactly what the path is for a peaceful resolution, would be a serious, serious mistake. And we all, and J Street, needs to be engaged right now. The most ardent voice that sometimes our members are hearing are the voices of the right wing, who is saying that this is already, they know, a bad deal. And let's face it, the Prime Minister is a very strong speaker. He was, I think, made a strong case. But we have to go into offices, and here's the message. What is the alternative to a strong, peaceful agreement that will prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon for a decade and more? What is that alternative? I see it is not a better deal. As the Prime Minister said, it is much more likely war. Now, the American people, if you ask them right now, 68% of them are supporting a negotiation and an agreement. Yes, let's clap for the American people. The American people whose voice, I believe, is largely represented in this room right now. And so what I'm really here to do today is to ask you to be engaged, to not only be meeting with your legislators, but encouraging everyone and all of the J Streeters and all of those people who support peace over war to be calling, to be writing, to be emailing, to be communicating. As I said, my staff, some of which is out here, all were on the telephone answering those calls. It makes a difference. It really makes a difference. You need to be convinced that those calls really, really matter, because you know that the opponents of a nuclear agreement will be doing just that. So we need to be flooding offices in the next days, and hopefully we get a good framework and moving toward the end of June, toward final detailed agreements. We need to be encouraging Congress to give peace a chance, to be pro-Israel and pro-peace along with J Street. Thank you very much.
Take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world, eh? I'm on top of the world, eh? Been waiting on this for a while now. Paying my dues to the dirt. I've been working this hard, eh? Been holding it in for a while, eh? Take me with me if I can. Been dreaming of this since a child. I'm on top of the world.
Please welcome member of the J Street Board of Directors, Molly Freeman.
Actually, it's Nancy Bernstein. Hello. Throughout the conference, you've heard speakers emphasize the importance of choice. And we just heard about the importance of having the courage to make the right choices. As we move forward, our leaders face choices about whether to pursue peace and compromise and about how to get there. Our next panel features 3 leaders, an Israeli, Palestinian, and an American, who have grappled with these challenges. It's my honor now to introduce our panelists for a vital conversation on the future of the work so important to us all, the work of reaching a sustainable 2-state solution that guarantees security and political and civil rights for all Israelis and Palestinians. Ambassador Martin Indyk is the Vice President and Director of the Brookings Institution's Foreign Policy Program. From 2013 to 14, he served as the U.S. Special Envoy for the Israeli-Palestinian negotiations, working closely with Secretary of State John Kerry on his peace initiative. Prior to that, Ambassador Indyk was a senior fellow and the founding director of the Sabin Center for Middle East Policy at Brookings. He served as U.S. Ambassador to Israel from 1995 to 97, and from 2000 to 2001 as Special Assistant to President Clinton and Senior Director for Near East and South Asian Affairs at the National Security Council, and as an Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs in the U.S. Department of State. Member of Knesset Hilik Bar was just reelected to the Knesset on the Zionist Union slate. Recently, he served as the Labor Party's youngest Secretary General to date. Previously, he served as senior advisor to various ministers in the Israeli government and cabinet. He's also the former deputy speaker of the Knesset, and he has chaired the Knesset caucus for the solution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, of the Israeli-Arab conflict. Dr. Saeb Erekat is the former chief of the PLO Steering and Monitoring Committee and has served as the chief Palestinian negotiator since 1995. He's considered one of the architects of the Oslo Accords. Dr. Erekat is recognized for having participated in a number of peace negotiations and initiatives with Israel, including the Camp David meetings in 2000, the Taba negotiations in 2001, and the Annapolis Conference in 2007. Before entering government, he lectured in political science at An Naja National University and served for 12 years on the editorial board of the Palestinian newspaper Al-Quds. Erekat was elected to the Palestinian Legislative Council in 1996 on the Fatah slate, representing Jericho. Our moderator this evening will be Ethan Bronner. Ethan Bronner is a managing editor for international news at Bloomberg, a graduate of Wesleyan and Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism. He spent 17 years at the New York Times, where he was, among other things, deputy national editor, education editor, deputy foreign editor, and Jerusalem bureau chief. Please now join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Thanks very much. So we're running a little late, but hey, it's like a long, delicious meal, but dessert is absolutely the best. What we're going to do is each of our panelists will speak for some minutes, and then we'll have a conversation as long as we can and, until it's time for all of us to go. We'll begin with Hilik Bar. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I want to apologize for my Israeli broken English after all the speakers here. But you know, we have a prime minister with fluent English, and our reality is not so bright. So maybe an Israeli broken English is better sometime. Above all, I want really to thank J Street on your partnership and on your courage and the thing we did together on being our primary partner, an excellent one, in working to achieve our common vision, secure peace and two-state solution. Together, we will do the impossible. Trust me. We will solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because there is no other choice, and this conference is about this choice exactly. But there are those, mainly on the right wing in Israel, who don't want to resolve the conflict. The Israeli right have new neologism. They bounding about managing the conflict. On the right, they don't talk about conflict resolution, they talk about conflict management, the new invention of the Israeli right wing. We don't have a partner, so let's manage the conflict. This is one defeatist attitude. But we are here, refuse to be defeatists. But let's, for the sake of argument, have a look at how Netanyahu and the right wing managed the conflict in the years that they have been in power. During the right-wing conflict management, terrorist organizations have grown stronger politically and militarily. The moderates have been weakened and the extremists strengthened. During the right-wing conflict management, Israel entered dangerous, endless, vicious circles of operations in Gaza. During the right-wing conflict management, thousands of rockets were fired at Israeli citizens, and terror tunnels were digged under our homes and city. During the right-wing conflict management, Israeli deterrence against terror organizations has been damaged. During the right conflict management, the polarization and incitement between us and the Palestinians grew and turned into despair and complete lack of trust. During the right conflict management, incitement between Israel's right and left, Jews and Arabs, has become a fixture of our society and a way of life. It is as if we didn't learn anything from the murder of Rabin. May his memory be blessed. Definitely. During the right conflict management, the rift between Israel Jews and Arab citizens deepened. Citizens of the same country who have reached a point where they hate each other, fight each other, and incite against each other. During the right-wing conflict management, Israel is heading toward international isolation. During the right-wing conflict management, diaspora Jews have become the target of a wave of anti-Semitic and anti-Israel attack. During the right-wing conflict management, one of the most serious crises has been created between us and our greatest and true friend and ally, the United States of America and its President Barack Obama. And I'm telling you, President Barack Obama, not everyone in Israel think what the government think. We think you are a true friend of Israel, a true ally of Israel, and we appreciate everything you did for Israel. We are proud to have this partner. And I want to tell you another thing, President Obama, or maybe Secretary Kerry. I remember one senior minister in our government called you obsessive because you tried to reach peace. Not peace between Wisconsin and Colorado, peace between Israel and Palestine. You called him obsessive. I have a dream that the Israeli government will be at least obsessive of you, like you, to reach peace for ourselves. Please, be obsessive. During the right-wing conflict management, the political conflict is turning into a religious conflict. Do you know how dangerous it is? And during the right-wing conflict management, we are marching confidently toward a third, very bad one, Intifada. Trust my words. Mainly in Jerusalem, and I'm a Jerusalemite. But worst of all, during the right-wing conflict management, we are marching straight towards a one-state solution and the killing of our dream for two-state solution. It will kill this dream. And I ask Prime Minister Netanyahu, is this how you manage the conflict? In any normal company, society, organization, the manager who will manage anything like this would have to be fired long time ago. Long time ago. No concessions here. Prime Minister Netanyahu internalized this. A brave leadership do not manage a conflict. A brave leadership solves a conflict. And this is exactly what we should do. It's in our hands. Dear friends, we have to tell the truth to the public. The two-state solution is the only possible solution for Israel and for the Palestinians. The only one. We have to tell the truth. The right-wing policies are leading us toward a binational state. And a binational state is the end of the Zionist enterprise and the end of Israel as a nation-state for the Jewish people. We must not sacrifice the future of our country on the altar of the narrow interest of the extreme right, because the extreme right way is definitely the wrong way. The dream of most Israelis and most Palestinians is the same vision and the same dream, a free and independent state of their own. The two-state solution is a joint Israeli-Palestinian interest, and this is why the dream of the Palestinians for having their own state should be also our dream, the Jewish people of Israel. It's the same dream. It's a win-win. And we are tired to live in a lose-lose situation. Another common claim by the right wing is that there is no partner. My dear friends, in conflict there is no such a thing as no partner. In war and in conflict, there will never be an ideal partner. Were there a conflict or war, the other side defined as the enemy or the adversary, and the enemy or the adversary is generally not a nice partner. The no-partner policy, my friends, is the excuse of the right wing for diplomatic stagnation and destruction, for a lack of courage, for a lack of leadership, for, frankly, a lack of spine. But you know, perhaps the right wing thinks that one day we will have or find a Palestinian leader who is the perfect partner, a Zionist Palestinian partner. Maybe. Saeb, do you know one? Saeb, I don't know one. Maybe they are looking for a Palestinian leader, Jabotinskite in his views, one who would leave a note in the Kotel, in the Western Wall, and will have the Israeli flag and the picture of Herzl and Ben Gurion behind his desk in the office. Maybe they are looking for this kind of partner. Do any one of you know this kind of partner? I'll let the right in a little secret. There will never be such a partner or a leader in the other side. There will never be a perfect partner for peace. Egypt and Jordan were far more bitter enemies of ours and far stronger than the Palestinians. But if the no partner assumption had guided Menachem Begin, as it guided Benjamin Netanyahu, Egypt and Jordan would still be our sworn enemies. Imagine that. Imagine that. But there used to be time that the right wing had brave leaders who understand what's good for Israel, what's good for the Zionist dream, what's good for all the citizens, Jews and Arabs. Read about what Jabotinsky wrote about the common fate that Jews and Arabs should have in Israel. Jabotinsky, the king of the right wing. Where is Jabotinsky today in Likud? Yitzhak Rabin said correctly, you make peace with your enemies. If we could turn Egypt and Jordan into partners, it is possible and critical that we do the same with the Palestinian Authority. It's in our hands. Now, there's another false claim by the right wing that I want to dispel. The right wing said, when there's a Palestinian state in the West Bank, Israel borders won't be defensible. This is a lie and a cheap intimidation. Israel is a strong country with one of the strongest armies in the world. In contrast, it is clear that in any agreement with the Palestinians, the Palestinian state will be demilitarized. Demilitarized. They agree to it. Ask Saeb. If Israel can defend its borders against enemy states with strong and almighty army, it can defend itself against a small demilitarized country if needed to. And if, God forbid, after a peace agreement, we will face terror from the future Palestinian state, Israel can deal with it as it's dealing with it today. But what do we have to lose? But when they will have a state and we will have peace, the motivation to attack will be lessened. The Palestinian government will become responsible for peace and quiet. The international community will not isolate us. Instead, they will back us up in our defense of our borders if we were to be attacked, because the justification for all defensive action by Israel will be clear to all, which is not the situation right now. Dear friends, Israel's most effective weapon against Egypt and Jordan has been the peace treaty with them. This will also be the case when we will have a Palestinian state. Israel must and always should be able to defend itself, even more so when a Palestinian state is established. Dear friends, let's say the truth. And this is very sad to think of. We already know what an Israeli-Palestinian agreement will look like, 90% of it. Most of the details of the agreement between us and the Palestinians has been written in dozens of protocols and accords and understandings and documents, mainly written by the obsessive Americans. We also wrote some. So what remains in dispute, we can and must be resolved in a concentrated and determined effort. Reaching an agreement is possible. What is missing, what is demanded today, is not the details. It's a determined and courageous leadership which knows how to conduct honest and genuine negotiation. Not pretended negotiation like the last 9 months. Not negotiation without good faith. Real negotiation, true and honest, until a white smoke will come out of the chimney, as we said. Because we must come to an agreement, and the sooner the better. And even if we will fail, God forbid, even if it's difficult, we must try again and again and again, because this is the future of us all. the future of the Israelis, the future of the Palestinians. This is the future of our children, the youth from both sides. This is our duty for the sakes of the future generation in Israel and in Palestine. I want to conclude by reminding or telling some of us about an important event that my lobby, my caucus at the Knesset, the Two-State Solution Caucus, arranged in the previous Knesset. We took about 300, for the first time in history, 300 young Israeli leaders to meet President Abu Mazen, President Abbas, face-to-face in the Mukata in Ramallah. We also hosted, by the way, the first formal Palestinian delegation inside the Knesset. It never happened until our caucus said that it should happen. 300 young people who came to look to President Abbas in the eyes and ask him all the tough questions. We asked hard questions. We got honest answers. We didn't like all the answers, but we got answers. We really spoke with the other side. Something that Prime Minister Netanyahu should try sometime soon. Talk with the other side. But listen to this. Few days after this visit to the Mukata, after a lot of pressure by Secretary Kerry, Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a speech in the Knesset where he said, I quote, if John Kerry pitched a tent, you know, a tent like in camping, between Jerusalem and Ramallah, Secretary Kerry would pitch a tent between Jerusalem and Ramallah, I'm quoting, I would sit with Abbas in this tent, and I would stay with him and negotiate as long as necessary to achieve peace and security between us and the Palestinians. Wow. Really, Prime Minister Netanyahu? Your problem is erecting a tent between Jerusalem and Ramallah? A small tent takes you so long to build. After all, you're putting tens of thousands of housing units in the settlements, and a small tent, this is so hard to build. Why should we believe anything you say after this tent speech you had in the Knesset? So here, Mr. Prime Minister, we commit from here, in this auditorium, there are hundreds and thousands young and old men and women, 1,000 students, and millions more of Israel's citizens who are willing to roll up their sleeves and help you set up these tents of yours between Jerusalem and Ramallah. We will build this tent any day now. You know what? We will install their air conditioning in the tent and heating, food and drinks, tables and chairs, even a pen if you'd like to sign something. Even a pistachio ice cream that you like so much. It's your favorite. We will bring it. Just go and sit with Abbas in this peace tent. Just show some leadership. Just show that you really want and are really, really ready to lead an end to this miserable and horrible conflict, to fulfill our dream for a two-state solution. Mr. Prime Minister, unfortunately, the problem is not the tent between Jerusalem and Ramallah. The problem is that you are not ready to go inside this tent. You do not have the courage, the determination, or the leadership to walk the extra mile, to cross the Rubicon. And I promise you for here, Prime Minister Netanyahu, even as a senior opposition member, if you will have the guts to go inside this tent, we will be right behind you. All of us. Even J Street. All of us. We will stand and salute you and admit that we were wrong about you. I promise. But if not, Prime Minister, I swear from here, we will do everything in our power to flip you and get the right leadership for Israel and for the future of Israel. Leadership that has the courage to get the job done. The last election proved, unfortunately, that there is still a long way to go. But we are patient. After all, we are talking on our future, and we will never, never give up on future, on peace, of our future, of the future of Zionism, Judaism, and our children. Peace is possible, peace is doable, and God, we will bring peace with the Palestinians. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hilik Bar, thank you very much. Martin Indyk.
Well, it's great to be back at J Street. Last time I was here, I was Special Envoy for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations, and I don't know whether you remember, but I told you that the time would be coming soon where you would be tested and you would have to stand up and fight for the two-state solution. Well, the time is still coming, but it will come. And when I listen to Hilik and Stav, I feel that it will not be too long. As many of you know, I've devoted my life to the achievement of peace for Israel. I suppose you could call me an obsessive Jew. Let's hear it for all the obsessive Jews in the audience. And that obsession has been based on two principles: that to ensure the survival and well-being of the Jewish homeland, it must have peace with its neighbours, and especially with the Palestinians. And secondly, that it will only achieve that peace if it has a strong relationship with the United States, if it has a relationship with the United States that is bipartisan in this country. Both of those principles are being challenged at the moment, but it's not the first time. I've seen many dark days in my life when peace seemed very far from reach. 1973, Yom Kippur War, I was a student in Jerusalem when it felt like the very existence of the state was hanging in the balance. I was ambassador in Israel when Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated. And so many times since then, through the violence and the terrorism of the Intifada and the wars that have been fought since then, it always seemed like peace would never come. And yet, I've always been driven by one clear belief, that there is no alternative to a two-state solution, that the only alternative to the two-state solution is continued conflict. And so one day, someday, somehow, with the active participation of the United States, Israel and the Palestinians will achieve peace. You've already heard from Dennis McDonough that it's not a great mystery as to what that peace looks like. You heard Hilik say that there have been many documents written, many negotiations carried out. Saeb Erekat and I, and the other member of our team who's missing today from this panel, Tzipi Livni, spent hours upon hours arguing sometimes shouting, often shouting, I would say, about the final status issues. And out of that, we, on the American side, got a clear picture of what it will look like. Yes, it involves a Palestinian state based on the 67 lines with mutually agreed swaps that could accommodate 75 to 80% of the settlers where they live today. It will require security arrangements like the demilitarized Palestinian state that Hilik referred to, and the security arrangements that General Allen worked on with Israel's generals and Palestinian security chiefs, which will ensure that an Israeli withdrawal to those borders, secure and recognized borders, will leave Israelis more secure, not less secure, than they are today. It will require Jerusalem to be the shared capital of two states. It will require a just and agreed solution to the Palestinian refugees problem, such that the Palestinians will have the right of return to their state of Palestine, but will not have the right of return to the state of Israel. And it will require mutual recognition. Two states for two people. Israel as the homeland for the Jewish people and Palestine as the homeland for the Palestinian people. I have a dream sometimes that we'll wake up on the other side and we'll look back once there is a two-state solution and ask ourselves, what the hell was all that about? Saeb and Tippy and I climbed together the hill, struggled together to get to the top and look over down into the promised land. And we could see what a two-state solution looks like. And my simple message to all of you today is that it can be done, that it will be done, hopefully in our time, but it will come. But it will only come through the commitment of all of you, and all of us to the effort to achieve peace. And so I too say exactly what Hilik said and have always said, just as Winston Churchill said in the darkest hours of the Second World War, we must never, ever, ever, ever give up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark and Indyk. Saeb Erekat.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be amongst you today. I heard Martin, I heard Hilik, I heard the Chief of Staff of the White House. We all know how to make peace. We all know there's going to be two states on 1967 lines. As Hilik said, and I agree with Martin, many drafts were done. How come we don't have an agreement? Why? This reminded me of a joke. A Palestinian and Israeli go to see a Western movie, cowboy. And then at the beginning of the movie, the star is really riding fast on his horse. And as usual, the Israeli look at the Palestinian, provocative, and tells him $20. He will fall from the back of his horse in 1 minute. And the Palestinian, without thinking, you're on. So in 59 seconds, the star is down. So the Palestinian gets the $20 to give to the Israeli, and the Israeli conscience, guilt, no, I cannot take it. The Palestinian is angry. You won, take it. And the Israeli is saying, I cannot take it. I cannot cheat you. I've seen this movie before. So the Palestinian goes to him, what do you think? I also saw it, but I thought he would learn from his mistakes. And we should learn from our mistakes. We should not allow Palestinian and Israeli leaders to export fear for us. Leaders are supposed to create hope. Leaders are supposed to tell people what they should hear, not what they like to hear. Leaders are supposed to provide life and future for their people. Well, I've known Mr. Netanyahu for 31 years. And when I'm asked openly about Israeli elections, Hilik, I always say, I don't interfere in Israel's domestic affair. You know what? If you sneeze in Tel Aviv, I get the flu in Jericho. That's the truth. And I know I hear some Israelis say we don't have a partner. We have to wait to create the right atmosphere. Let's see what goes in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, whatever. Congo, maybe it has a relation. To these people, if Mother Teresa were to be the president of the Palestinians, Montesquieu to be the speaker of the Palestinians, and Thomas Jefferson to be the prime minister of the Palestinians, and for them to say two states in 1967, they will not be partners, they will be terrorists, and they will be boycotted. I did not wake up one morning and felt my conscience aching for the Israelis that I sit with them. And I don't believe that the Israelis woke up one morning and felt their conscience aching for my suffering that they sit with me. I'm doing it because it's the most cardinal interest need for Palestinians. No one stands to gain more of peace more than Palestinians, and no one stands to lose more of the absence of peace more than Palestinians. We have recognized the state of Israel, right to exist and live in peace and security on the 1967 lines. This stands. My option is a two-state solution. My only option is a two-state solution for the state of Palestine to live in peace and security next to the state of Israel on the 1967 lines. There is no such a thing as a one-state solution, for a solution requires two parties. It cannot happen. Yes, there is a one-state reality. And if Mr. Netanyahu tells me that my state is not going to be on his watch, what are you going to do with me? I swear to God, Christian and Muslim Palestinians will not convert to Judaism and become Israelis. And Jews will not convert to Christianity and Islam and become Palestinians. What are you going to do with me? If you say it's not on your watch, a Palestinian state that is, that means you're creating a one-state reality. And you know what's a one-state reality for me as a Palestinian means? Means what's happening today. There are roads in the West Bank I cannot use as a Palestinian. Only Israelis can use. Occupation corrupts. We have to stand tall to end this occupation. Such diseases as bigotry and racism, once it inflicts underneath our skin, we have tended to justify it. All of us. All of us. Today, we have a Palestinian leadership headed by President Mahmoud Abbas, who have recognized the state of Israel right to exist in peace and security on the 1967 lines. We have realized that Benjamin Netanyahu is not a two-stater. He's not. And that's why we thought to ourselves, what do we do in order to preserve the two-state solution? So we went to the United Nations. Americans opposed us. And they told us, you derail our efforts. A two-state solution can only be reached by negotiations. And you said he needs a tent? My God, I have so many refugee camps, I can provide him with many tents. So he said, the Palestinians are undermining the peace process because they went to the UN and passed the resolution. You know what the resolution said? The resolution specified that a state of Palestine will live in peace and security side by side the state of Israel on the 1967 lines. I had hoped that Israelis will go hand in hand with me to the UN to do this. That is the two-state solution. We're being fought because we're signing on conventions to preserve women's rights, to preserve freedoms. That's the Palestine we envision. Palestine will be a country of freedom, democracy, human rights, women's rights. We cannot do otherwise. We know the difficulties we're going through. We know that in order to achieve a Palestinian state, we must get it, that we're going to have one authority, one gun, and a rule of law. Hamas is a Palestinian political party. We're divided. And if we don't help ourselves as Palestinians, no one else will. We tell Hamas when we differ, we resort to ballots, not bullets. And when we establish a state, we're going to have one authority, one gun, and the rule of law. We have a long way to go. We commit many mistakes. Not because we wake up every morning and we say, today we're going to commit these following mistakes. We're a young authority. We're learning. We're crawling sometimes. The complexities we're facing are enormous. The challenges are enormous. Today, it's the 4th month we are unable to pay salaries. So to you, Mr. Netanyahu, I would tell you very frankly in this occasion, we are not sustainable as a Palestinian authority anymore. If that's what you're seeking, to keep us an authority without an authority, and you want your occupation to be cost-free, sir, if you don't get your act together, you will be invited to resume your occupation powers fully. You will be responsible for everything between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean. We cannot sustain ourselves anymore. We have exercised every patience there is and given chances. And from here, I would like to say thank you, President Obama. Thank you, John Kerry. Thank you, Martin Indyk. No president, and I've been with these negotiations, no president, no Secretary of State have invested and done to Palestinians and Israelis more than John Kerry and President Obama. That is the truth. But President Obama and John Kerry will not be able to make decisions that are only required of Palestinians and Israelis. It's us, not Obama, not Kerry. It's us that will make the decisions. And as Palestinians, we have made our decision to live and let live. I don't want my son to be a suicide bomber. I want my son to be like your children, the physician, the musician, the soccer player, the writer, the teacher, the educator. Israelis and Palestinians are normal people. We are like you in the United States, like Nigerians, like Nicaraguans, like Biafrans, like anyone. We're not perfect. And we have a tendency to allow some people to export fear to us. And this must stop. This must stop. Our conflict is a political one. It's over territories. It's over statehood. Our conflict is not a religious one. Judaism to us as Palestinians is not a threat, is an asset. It's one of God's great religions like Christianity and Islam. We are destined to live together, side by side. I had hoped and prayed that the Israeli people will elect those who will take me as their neighbor, their partner, their equal. I was 12 years old when the occupation came to my hometown, Jericho. Next month, I'm 60. I'm a grandfather of 6. I will not give up. I will do everything in my power to maintain and sustain the two-state solution. Not for Israel, but for my grandchildren. And today, more than any time before, the world should not be divided between those who are pro-Israel and those who are pro-Palestinians. The world and our world should be divided between those who are pro-peace and those who are against peace, and those who believe in peace must believe in the two-state solution as the only option. A Palestinian state to live side by side, the state of Israel in peace and security on the 1967 line. That is our promise, that's our destiny, that's our future, that's our courage, that's our hope, and I thank you very much.
Okay. We've had 3 actually extremely inspirational speakers, and we have about 7 seconds for a conversation. We have to be out of here in 12 minutes, so and we're not going to really be able to have the kind of panel conversation we were hoping to have. It lets me off the hook. I'm okay with that.
We were late an hour.
Yeah, I know. No. You guys are not the cause of the problem. We'll discuss the cause another time. Okay. But so what I'll do, with your permission, is just try to get a question or 2 in, and then we'll wrap it up. So I think, Saeb, I'll start with you. You did say just now that if things don't change soon, the Palestinian Authority could kind of collapse. I don't know whether you were saying you'll just throw in the towel or it'd simply be impossible to go forward. So I want to ask you 3 things about the Palestinian Authority. 1, how close is it to bankruptcy? 2, what do you think the risk is of street violence? And 3, are you planning to go ahead to the International Criminal Court?
Number 1, we are surviving, I don't know how. The most important thing that happened to the Palestinians was the birth of the Palestinian Authority. And our contract with the Israelis, this authority was supposed to transfer Palestinians from occupation to independence through peaceful means and negotiations. Now, since 2009, he deprived us from our jurisdiction in the domains of security, territorial, functional, personal. We have no, if Mahmoud Abbas, my president, wants to go to Amman, he has to seek a permission from the Israelis, and in the bridge, a young Israeli soldier and young Israeli soldiers will come and read his name, his book, and allow him not to go or go.
And we survived. But today, we're not sustainable. If in Mr. Netanyahu's watch there is no such thing as a Palestinian state, the Palestinian Authority that cannot deliver Palestinians to independence cannot survive. We're not sustainable. How close?
Very close. I'm not talking about months.
Okay.
And now imagine a situation where a very poor people, our revenue is $130 million collected by Israel because we are not independent, customs and revenues. Mr. Netanyahu took a decision to withhold it from us,
right,
even though they take 3% surcharge.
Right.
We cannot deliver medical supplies to hospitals, pay teachers, so on. In 1973 war, they did not stop paying salaries for teachers and doctors and nurses in the West Bank and Gaza. They paid it.
What's your sense of the risk of
so
violence?
my sense is that Mr. Netanyahu believes we're bluffing. He believes, there is a difference between someone being a tough negotiator and someone being a non-negotiator. And to non-negotiators, you know what? They don't care. What do they care about is the 10 o'clock news. That's it. The authority, as it is now, is not sustainable. This is my message to the White House, to the State Department today, and I really hope against hope that something will happen immediately in order to allow the Palestinian Authority to survive by mutually and in reciprocal terms, that implementation of obligations will happen. The second thing about violence. As I told you, no one benefits more from peace than us, and no one loses more from the absence of peace than us. It's our lives, it's our freedom, it's our independence, our dignity. And I cannot promise you, I like the speech of the young Knesset member when she said we should not despair, because desperation would lead to desperate acts. That's the truth. That's the truth. And we have the choices. The choice was, there are some elements amongst our society that say only by violence shall we move things. I don't believe in this.
I know.
This is why we said, let's seek the path of the UN conventions, agencies, ICC, and we're telling Palestinians, we're doing this because we're going to get the support of the international community. Should not give up hope. We should not give up the idea of Palestinian state. Don't despair. 138 nations have recognized us. Stay the course with us, but don't use violence.
And what
so if Mr. Netanyahu blocks the door for negotiations, says no Palestinian state, and some nations don't want me to go to the UN and other agencies, this will open the gates of hell open. Lose.
And what if he said to you, don't go to the ICC and we'll give you your tax money?
Look, I really think that people should look at our joining these organizations in the right way. If you worry about courts, stop committing crimes. Don't come to the victim and tell them, don't go to court. All right?
Okay.
You should know that now the ICC opened a preliminary investigation or examination. And we're telling our people, only through peaceful means you're going to get the support of your neighbors, the Israelis, of the international community. Don't resort to violence. But as an alternative to Netanyahu closing the doors of peace and negotiations and the Palestinian state, I urge the United States of America to immediately extend recognition to the state of Palestine, because those who say they believe in a two-state solution should not recognize one state. They should recognize the two states.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the truth.
Martin. Let's put aside the question of whether there's a partner, where the partner is sitting here, if you like, and the people he's been working with for years, and you've been negotiating with them. The second point that the Netanyahu government tends to make is that even if we take at face value President Abbas and a man like Mr. Erekat, they won't last. They're not strong enough. The tendency in the region is really in the other direction. And if we hand it over to them, Hamas and actually the other Islamist forces will take over. What's your response to that?
Peace will make them strong. It's very simple. They will then be able to deliver on their promises to their people. See, Israel has agency in this situation. Israel is not the victim. I wish the Palestinians also would recognize that they are not the victims here, that they both have responsibilities and both have capabilities. The Palestinian Authority has been exercising its responsibility when it comes to security coordination with Israel, working together with the United States and Jordan to build up the security forces and to ensure that they are committed to preserving law, order, and peaceful relations with Israel. The notion that if Israel withdraws from the West Bank, Hamas will take over.
Not immediately, to be
It
fair.
assumes that the same thing that happened in Gaza would happen here. The whole point here is to negotiate an agreement that will provide security arrangements for Israel. That will include fallbacks if the Palestinians don't live up to their commitments. But it's also to strengthen the Palestinians so that they can live up to their commitments. Why do the Palestinians, Palestinian Authority face such a challenge from Hamas today? It's because they lack credibility in front of their people. 20 years they've been promising that the Palestinian state is coming. Abu Mazen has for 10 years preached to his people exactly what Saeb said, that non-violence is the only way to achieve our rights. But if the rights cannot be achieved, then obviously Hamas is strengthened. That's what's happening here. So the critical challenge is to strengthen your partner, not denigrate him as not being a partner.
Okay.
Because that makes it impossible.
Hilik, we have time for one last question.
Can I add another small thing to this?
But it's got to be small, because I wanted to ask you about something else, and we're running out of time.
Let him answer both.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
About the Palestinian partner who may not provide, as the right wing say. In some cases, it's true. I mean, we brought them there. But Israel should go, beside making a genuine effort to really negotiate with them, should go dance not only the tango between Israeli and Palestinians, but to a broader hora dancing. You know hora dancing? In the Middle East. Because the Middle East, it's amazing to think that for 13 years we had the Arab Peace Initiative offered to Israel. 13 years. An initiative which is not perfect. If I'm Prime Minister, I wouldn't sign this exact initiative. But it's offered to us by 57 Muslim countries and 22 Arab countries, among them our biggest enemies, initiative that at the end say end of conflict, normalization with Israel, end of all claims, and for 30 years Israel didn't reply to it. Not, you know what, you can say yes. You can say yes, but. You can be polite and at least say no, but to not reply, this is the biggest diplomatic evil and mistake ever be done. And I'm telling you, I told Prime Minister Netanyahu from the podium of the Knesset, sometimes the enemy of your enemy can be your friend. You should understand that the Arab world and the Palestinians are not homogenic. And we should split them to two main parts. No, excuse me for only two main parts.
It's good too.
No. By the way, you belong to one of them. But there is two parts of Arab world and Palestinians as I see it. One part is those who want to live here next to us. And this is Saeb and President Abbas and most of the Palestinians. The other part is those who want to live here instead of us. Okay? There is such Palestinians. Hamas, for example. The same goes for the Arab world. And Israel should say one simple thing. With those who want to live here instead of us, we should speak in the language of army because we don't have any choice. But with those who want to live here next to us, and this is the majority, we are obliged and we must speak with them and do every effort in order to get a two-state solution because they're offering it.
Okay. Last question, because we're really running out of time. The question I want to ask you is that for whatever reason, even though it sounds very persuasive, the voters of Israel didn't vote for this. They voted a different way. They voted along the lines of the concerns that I raised in my question, which is, yeah, maybe they're okay, but it's not going to last, whatever. We are really at risk if we cut a deal. The question I ask you is, what are you going to do in the coming months and years to change that conversation so that people don't, because there's also a kind of culture war that we're familiar with in this country between Amcha, between a certain side of Israel, and against the people that they consider the elite. How are you going to combat that question? In 30 seconds, please.
In 30 seconds. We will be a very strong opposition who will try to miserable Netanyahu life and put a mirror to the face of the Israeli people. And the absurd to think is that, you know, the vast majority of the Jewish Israeli are pro-two-state solution. At the same time, this majority don't believe that it's possible. So one, we should show the Israeli people why it is possible, with or without the help of the Palestinians. But we as Israelis should tell them why we should have a two-state solution. And we should tell them, and most of them, by the way, don't understand what is the one-state solution, what is the consequences of a binational state. And I think that for the two last elections, by the way, Sheli Yachimowicz in the Labour Party, and in one or another way also in the current election, we didn't talk enough about a plan. We didn't present a very clear plan for peace. And I'm intended to do in my caucus and inside the Labour Party and with our opposition, together with Yair Lapid and Meretz and all the parties in the opposition, to suggest a plan to the people of Israel and to tell them, listen, you can choose in the dark way of despair of Netanyahu, or you can choose next election hope. This is what we are presenting to you. This is how we will solve the conflict. And I truly believe that with our young and new forces inside the peace camp in Israel, that rise up again, I'm very optimistic, rise up again, we will be able to present to the Israeli people a mirror in their face to show them why this occupation, why this lack of solving the conflict is the worst thing that can happen, and what can be the future. And me, together with Stav Shaffir and Tamar Zandberg and other members of Knesset, are obliged to raise our head. We are not despair. We are proud of the last election. The peace camp went outside. We have a huge achievement. 24 seats, you don't remember, Saeb, in the Labour Party for the last 20 years. And much bigger bloc, as a bloc. So together with Yair Lapid, and together with the Arab parties, and definitely with Meretz, we will put in the mirror on the face of Netanyahu and in the face of the Israeli public, and we will tell them, don't choose the dark side, choose the side of hope, and I'm very optimistic that it will happen.
Okay, there you have it. We're going to have to cut our conversation short, but that was not bad for three good answers at J Street. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Great job. I think that was you guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next breakout session will begin at 4:30.
And congratulations on your grandchild. Thank you.
At the start of the end of the world, but it's feeling just like every other morning before. Now I wonder what my life is gonna be if it's gone.
Okay, text me.
The cars are moving like a half a mile an hour, and I started staring at the passengers and waving goodbye. Can you tell me what was ever really special about me all this time? But I believe the world is burning to the ground. Oh well, I guess we're gonna find out. Let's see how far we've come. Let's see how far we've come. Well, I believe it all is coming to an end. Oh well, I guess we're gonna pretend. Let's see how far we've come. Let's see how far we've come. You turn 10 o'clock, but I don't really know. And I can't remember caring for an hour or so. Started crying and I couldn't stop myself. I started running, but there's nowhere to run to. I sat down on the street, took a look at myself. Said, where you going, man? You know the